Okay, good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Township of Wainfleet excuse me. Hold on. Excuse me, I screwed up. Okay. All right. I would like to call the Township of Wainfleet regular council meeting of March 19th, 2024 to order. Please stand for the national anthem. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples, acknowledging the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, please note that these meeting proceedings are being broadcast live, recorded, and made available through the Township website and youtube.com. We are hosting our annual drainage program open house on Thursday, March 28th, 2024, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here in Council Chambers. The new Marshville Public School is hosting a pasta dinner fundraiser for the new sports team uniforms on April 5th at the Wainfleet BIC on Perry Road. Tickets are available through School Cash online. The solar eclipse on April 18th. This eclipse will be viewable from everywhere in Niagara, and we are asking residents to please stay off roadways to avoid congestion for emergency services. I read 8. Town Hall will be physically closed to the public on April 8th, but staff will be working and will remain available to serve the public remotely. Our next regular meeting of council is Tuesday, April 9th at 6:30. I don't have any updates. Currently, we have regional council this coming Thursday. Transit met today, just doing some year-end reports, and the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority meets this coming Friday. Are there any announcements or remarks from members of council? Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'd just like to make mention for the public and my fellow councilors that the Niagara Health Coalition is holding a meeting at the Vail Center in the Golden Puck Room in Port Colborne, March 21st from 6:30 to 8 o'clock, which may be of interest to people who are interested in healthcare delivery. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to the adoption of the previous council minutes, are there any comments, corrections for the draft minutes from the meetings listed on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, I have a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held February 20th, 2024 be adopted as circulated. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Gilmore? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. We have no public meetings this evening. We also have no delegations this evening. So moving on to the consent agenda, we have 3 items listed on the consent agenda this evening. Those items are ASR 004/2024 respecting the 2023 building and septic permit fees. Number 2 is PWSR 005/2024 respecting the supply of bulk water, transported water. And the third is PWSR 005/2024 respecting the equipment rental rates for 2024. Are there any items that council wishes to be removed from the consent agenda for discussion? Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, could Could we pull ASR 05, the projected year-end results, please? Oh, it's out already? Oh, sorry, you're already on board there. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I have a motion that the following items be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. ASR 004/2024 respecting the 2023 building and septic permit fees. PWSR 005/2024 respecting the supply of bulk transported water. And PWSR 006/2024 respecting the equipment rental rates 2024. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McCullen? Councilor Gilmore? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Okay, moving on to staff reports and recommendations. Respecting the memorandum respecting the fire department administration, Ms. Louie, could you please provide a brief overview of your memo?
Yes, thank you. So through the mayor to all of council, so the memo before you comes as a result of the Port Colborne Fire Chief submitting his resignation effective April 12th. So provincial legislation states that the municipality shall appoint a fire chief. In the spirit of the MOU adopted at a joint meeting of council in the fall of 2023 between the Township of Wainfleet Council and the Port Colborne Council, the Wainfleet chief and deputy chief will be appointed by bylaw for a period not to exceed 120 days. During that time, staff are recommending that a shared service committee be created to explore the possibilities of a longer-term shared service model between the two municipalities. So in the interim, to comply with legislation, Wainfleet will provide the service, and we will invoice Port Colborne on a cost recovery basis.
Thank you. So I have a motion that this memorandum be received and that the chief administrative officer be directed to enter into an agreement with the city of Port Colborne to enlist the services of our fire chief and deputy chief for a duration not to exceed 120 days, and that a joint shared services committee be established with the city of Port Colborne, and that the chief administrative officer and the mayor be appointed to the committee. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Anderson? Any discussion? Seeing none? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Okay, moving on to ASR 005/2024 respecting the 2023 projected year-end results. Mr. Hart, could you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening I have before you our projected year-end results, including operating, capital, and a summary of our reserves as of March 11th, 2024. This is a follow-up to ASR 012/2023, in which we projected year-end results as of Q3. In this report, we are recommending a transfer of surplus, which is outlined in the table in the report. These transfers align with the strategies in the Q3 report, as well as the 2024 budget. In addition to that, we're transferring some of the department's related surpluses back to those that generated them. We are requesting that council also approve the creation of a drainage reserve in order to transfer unused debt repayment amounts to fund future shortfalls or projects in this area. Thank you, and I am happy to answer any questions or provide clarity on this report.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. So I have a motion that the administrative staff report ASR 005/2024 respecting the 2023 projected year-end results be received, and that the recommended transfers to and from reserves as outlined in the below be approved, and that a reserve for drainage be created to be used as a source of funding for drainage-related operations and projects in the future. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Anderson? Any discussion? Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Cameron for, just for me, the person who likes numbers and math, just an absolutely excellent report. It's the kind of thing that I like to see, and I'm sure that my colleagues also, and I'm looking forward to his progressive presentations with asset management, et cetera. So thank you, Cameron. Well done. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. Seeing none, I will call the question of all in favor. Opposed, and that is carried. So we're going to move on to staff drainage staff reports. DSR 001/2024 respecting the drainage program update. Mr. Jameson, could you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of council. So drainage staff report number 1 for 2024 relates to the drain works and projects that were completed last year in 2023 and what we have scheduled for 2024. In 2023, approximately 18.5 kilometers of drain were maintained. And then some other major highlight from 2023 was the completion of the consolidated South Wainfleet Drain Section 76 update. It was an extensive project that took quite a few years to complete, but it's going to allow for equitable billing across the major drainage system. As mentioned in the mayor's remarks, the drainage program open house is scheduled for next Thursday, March 28th, where staff will provide a presentation on the proposed maintenance for the year and some of the other large-scale projects. I'd also just like to thank the advisory committee, the drainage operator and his predecessor, and the road staff for their commitment to the drainage infrastructure. We're very fortunate to have a team like this that allows us to provide a high level of service for the municipality. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So I have a motion that the drainage staff report DSR 001-2024 respecting the township's 2023/2024 drainage program update be received and that the 2024 municipal drain maintenance program be approved. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan, Councilor Gilmore, any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question of all in favor. Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to DSR 002/2024 respecting the Big Forks Drain future management. Mr. Jameson, again, could you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Yes, definitely. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of council. So the Big Forks Drain is the main outlet drain across the municipality. It starts in Haldeman County and flows generally east and north between Wolford Road and Highway 3 towards the Welland River. It's approximately 12 kilometers long, and then there's quite a few more kilometers of natural water course that the municipality cannot maintain. So as seen as the attachment to this report, there's about 20 municipal drains that flow directly into the Big Forks, and then in that natural water course, there's another 7. So completed in 1984, the existing engineer's report is out of date in respect to modern environmental regulations, and due to the age of the report, the maintenance options for this drain are limited. So currently, the drain is full of sediment. There's countless trees and obstructions that are in the way. So in 2018 and 19, the township completed some brushing and vegetation removal, and then applied for maintenance permits to complete a bottom cleanout. The permits that were received after extensive back and forth with the regulatory agencies was for a fairly limited scope of project, a half bottom, so from the middle of the drain to one drain bank for 150 meters at 10 different locations. So the municipality decided not to do that work as it wouldn't be that effective. So staff have discussed the challenges associated with this drain in Drainage Staff Report 6 of 2022, and Drainage Staff Report 3 of 2023. The Drainage Advisory Committee has also met on several occasions to discuss the options and opportunities on how to tackle the Big Forks. So last month, one of those meetings with staff and the Drainage Advisory Committee, the committee recommended pursuing an improvement project under Section 78 of the Drainage Act for the Big Forks, and staff are also in support of that recommendation to appoint R.J. Burnside to undertake an improvement project. So a comprehensive engineering firm with specialized biological and ecological staff will be able to advocate for the municipality and work with those regulatory agencies to find a more realistic solution that can facilitate the drainage needs. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So I have a motion that the Drainage Staff Report, DSR 002-2024, regarding the future management of the Big Forks Drain be received and that council authorize staff to prepare and distribute the necessary notices in accordance with Section 78(1) Drainage Act, and that the council appoint R.J. Burnside and Associates Limited under the Drainage Act to improve the Big Forks Drain. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor Gilmore, Councilor McClellan, any discussion? Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
Mr. Jemison, when will Burnside, like their engineering and that, how long is that going to take, or do they have an estimate? I know you're dealing with government bodies, so it takes forever, but.
Through Mr. Mayor to the councilor. So we've had some preliminary discussions with them, and it is going to be a multi-year project. We'd be looking at least 2 to 3 years of engineering before any public consultation takes place. I would estimate on the earliest side would be 5 years.
Okay. Again, Any estimate on what this 5 years of engineering is going to cost us?
We had a general meeting with the engineering firm, and they said that a six-figure amount, $100,000, would be the kickoff.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Gilmore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to pick up on those comments, I think it's important that council and the public and everybody knows this is going to be a significant financial project for the township, significant. However, it's also the main artery in the township. Everything that happens that leaves here, basically with the exception of very few drains that go to the lake, go through here. And it's already been far too long that it was dealt with, and there's really no other alternative other than to deal with it. Waiting is just, in my opinion, very short-sighted and not an option. But I don't want anyone to be under any illusion that it's going to be, a few $100,000 to deal with. We're talking a lot of money and over a long period of time, hence the need for a reserve, because the township has to carry a lot of those costs for a long period of time before there's any billing. So I'm sure that's going to be fleshed out maybe a little bit more at our open house, and we need to have, lots of public consultation, because it's not going to be just your average municipal drain that, we have a lot of them, and most of them go almost unnoticed, but this one is not going to do that, and it's probably going to be well into the next council's decision-making process to deal with it. But as a committee and sitting on the committee, I've sort of wanted to get this moving so that, because as Mark suggested, it's going to take a long, long time just to get to the point where we can do anything, and it's only getting worse. So that's, I just want to make sure everybody's aware of the implications of this project.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's why I was asking the questions, Councilor Gilmore. I've taken my quad up along there from the Welland River to where it goes. It's an absolute mess. I don't know where you'd even start on it, and I've gone a couple miles up there. And that's why I was trying to allude this is going to be a long-term thing in money. So it's a good idea to have that reserve started.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Moving on to planning staff reports. PSR 002-2024, respecting cannabis production facilities. Ms. Ivins, could you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of council. So the township currently has bylaws in place to govern medical marijuana facilities, which includes a zoning bylaw, a site plan control bylaw, as well as a medical marijuana licensing bylaw. With federal changes to access to cannabis, staff are proposing that the term medical marijuana facility be replaced in these bylaws with the term cannabis production facility, which is proposed to be defined as any land, building, or structure used for growing, producing, processing, testing, destroying, storing, packaging, and or shipping of cannabis for medical or non-medical purposes, but does not include the growing, producing, and processing of 4 or less cannabis plants on a lot for personal use, or the retailing of cannabis or cannabis products under a retail operator license issued under the Cannabis Act 2018. So in addition to replacing the term, staff are also proposing to only permit cannabis production facilities within the A2, A3, and A4 zones, whereas the current zoning bylaw provisions for medical marijuana permits that use within all agricultural and rural zones. So staff are seeking direction to proceed with the proposed amendments and to schedule a public meeting to obtain feedback.
Thank you. So I have a motion that the planning staff report PSR 002-2024 be received and that the council endorse the proposed amendments to the zoning bylaw 034/2024, site plan control bylaw 2015 and medical marijuana licensing bylaw 057-2017 outlined within this report, and that staff be directed to initiate a zoning bylaw amendment file and to schedule a public meeting for April 30th, 2024. Can I have a mover and a second? Councilor McLeod? Councilor Gilmore? Any discussion? Councilor Anderson, of course.
It may just be semantics, but it's not a make program, Sarah. But because we have questions and concerns, I believe there's a collegial group on this. I'm just wondering whether we could change the phraseology that council will endorse, which to me means to pass or to promise or to do, and to put in the wording council will consider, which is indicates in English that there's a possibility or probability of. If we're going to hold a public meeting, I just know that people call you and say, why would I bother coming, because you're endorsing something, it's a done deal. So I'm just wondering if, just for the sense of semantics, that we could change that word from endorse to consider. Thank you.
Ms. Simons, do you want to speak to that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I'm certainly open to that wording. The intention was to just get some direction from council to proceed. Yep.
Councilor McCullough, go ahead.
Sarah, I'm wondering if we can, I don't know what the distance is from a residence currently. And can you tell me what that is?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to councillor, it's 150 meters to the lot line of a residential use. So not necessarily to the structure, but if you are next to a property, so if you're looking to establish one of these facilities and the property next to you has a residential use, it has to be 150 meters to the common property line.
Okay, so there's a couple that are in Welland and Pelham, and I know you can smell them 400 meters away before you even get to them. Can we change that to 500 meters from a lot line to your nearest residence?
Through Mr. Mayor to the councillor, certainly that distance is open for amendment. I have done some extensive research on what other municipalities are doing. I would say 500 meters is on the very high end, and I don't think that I came across a municipality that has that significant of a setback. I think the highest I saw was 300, but I think the 150 that we have in place is generally in line with ministry guidelines and some of the common best practices that we're seeing throughout the province, but certainly open to discussion on increasing that setback.
So like I say, I drive down Clare Avenue in Welland to go to my brother-in-law's place. You can smell it from Clare and Thorold, and it's somewhere up off of Pelham Road. It's way more than 500 meters, and you smell it every time you drive down there. I know I wouldn't want it that close to my house, and, you know, we pay big taxes. We expect this. I can tell you from experience, you don't smell a windmill, and it has to be 500 meters from your house. So, you know, I believe 500 meters is a good number to get away. It will most likely, we won't get any coming in here, and that might not be a bad thing.
Councilor Gilmore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, if we're going to have a public consultation, we'll get those comments and many other, and they'll be taken under advisement. And then when this process runs its course, then that'll be the time. Like, as long as we're not doing something that's viewed as, quote, punitive, then it should be as much as we can, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
It should be as much as we can reasonably get away with. But at this juncture, would that comment and everything else will be addressed after the meeting.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? So seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to PSR 003, 2024, respecting the housekeeping amendments to zoning bylaws 034-2024. Ms. Ivins, could you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of council. So staff are recommending several changes to zoning bylaw 034, 2014 to improve the functionality and enforceability of the bylaw, to better align with the township's official plan, as well as to address some common minor variance requests. So this includes new definitions, some modifications of existing definitions, new provisions for garden suites, changes to the provisions for secondary suites, clarification on permitted uses within the agricultural, rural, and institutional zones, parking and loading provisions for institutional and industrial, and then increasing the setback to municipal drains. As a result of the review of historical minor variance applications, staff proposed changes to the lot coverage provision for single detached dwellings within the agricultural and rural zones, as well as accessory building lot coverage and height within all zones to reflect the desires of the community and to reduce the number of minor variance applications going forward. So this will lead to a more streamlined process for residents looking to obtain building permits for these projects. Additionally, staff are proposing to implement zoning bylaw 034 for the township's hamlets, which is currently under a different zoning bylaw. And the goal here is to implement the zoning that aligns with the current official plan and to only have one bylaw governing the townships. So pending council direction to proceed with the amendments, statutory public meeting will be scheduled for April 30th to obtain feedback from the public, and will provide notice in accordance with the Planning Act, as well as posting on the township's website and social media pages. Following that public meeting and the public consultation process, then staff will be preparing a report for council's decision at that time. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. I have a motion that the planning staff report PSR 003, 2024 be received and that council endorse the proposed amendments outlined in Appendix A, and that staff be directed to initiate a housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment file and to schedule a public meeting for April 30th, 2024. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan, Councilor Gilmore, any discussion? Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Having gone through this, and it covers a whole lot of different areas of bylaws. It's not just a simple housekeeping thing in my mind. You know, we talk about home industries, and I think in here it's trying to change it so you can't have employees, you can't park company trucks out there. That barn door was opened 20 years ago by a previous council. How do you tell somebody that's living here, has a home-based business, let's call him a landscaper because he's got 5 or 6 trucks and guys working for him. How do you tell him that he can't run his business out of his home now when he's been doing it for the last 20 years? Do we set a date of 6 years from now, December 31st is the last day you can run it, and you have time to get out of here? Like, how do you do that? So there's certain things I think that, yes, we can do. The setbacks, lot coverage especially, you could probably do that in this first meeting and get that done. Some of these other ones, there's properties where we're going to change what you can do in A1, A2, A3, A4. I have a piece of property that I've owned for 28 years. It's had 6 different zonings on it, and I've never been notified once when they got changed. That's not right. That's not how it's supposed to work in a free country. You're supposed to tell me what you're doing. We're not in a communist country where you just tell me we do things. So, like I said, the lot coverage, that's a big issue right now. Sure, let's get that one, put it up there and do it. Maybe some of the rest, we got to figure out how to get it. Your dad died and he left you and your sister 2 different pieces of property. Your sister's working somewhere overseas. She doesn't, nobody's here at council now. We put it in, the only newspaper now that covers everything is, I think, the Turtle Island newspaper that nobody reads. So the public isn't getting this information. So we've got to do a better job of this so that, because this affects people's livelihoods. So I get the lot coverage, let's put that up now, get that done. Let's figure out how we're going to do the rest of this done. Get maps out to the public, says what your land is zoned, how it's going. This there's not enough information here to do this whole thing in one fell sweep.
Ms. Evans, do you want to make comment to that first? Let's come to you, Terry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm not entirely sure how to address those comments. Under the Planning Act, there's notice provisions, right? And so that's the minimum. What I'm proposing to do as part of the public consultation process is above the minimum. So we're meeting provincial legislation. We have great resources in our website. People use social media to access information about what's going on in the community. So we'll utilize that. So we're not making any site-specific changes to specific properties. We're refining some of the provisions within certain zones. Specifically to your comment about the agricultural uses. So I'm just providing clarity on what is permitted in those zones as it relates to a single detached dwelling on a principal use on a new lot. So the way the bylaw is currently written, people have interpreted that as you're able to sever prime agricultural lands, which we know the province doesn't allow. So by providing this clarity in the housekeeping amendment by introducing exception 5, we're clarifying that a single detached dwelling as a principal use on any new lot, it would be a result of a surplus farm dwelling that was approved. So we're not really changing the permitted uses. We're providing that extra clarity because we've had issues where people are interpreting things where the intention was not for the bylaw to allow severances in prime agricultural areas. So that's all we're doing in terms of the permitted uses within those agricultural zones. And again, we want to make sure that the public is engaged, and so we will follow our notice policy and the legislative requirements to make sure that message is getting out there that we're doing a housekeeping amendment and solicit their feedback for the public meeting before council makes decisions on these recommendations.
Councilor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to suggest that the same wording change endorsed to, what word did you use again? Consider, be made in line 2, and just to reiterate that this is exactly the same process that we're going to follow in the previous report. And in the meantime, all of us and have 5-6 weeks to, to correspond with the department with specific issues. Most of it I do support as well, and it cleans up red tape, which I wholeheartedly support. So, but again, all our comments and everybody else's at the meeting will be taken under advisement, and we're going to deal with it at some point after the 30th. But in the meantime, specific things should just be directed via email to the department and get, so we all have some clarity, because there's lots of it that we could probably approve tonight, but there are things in there that do specifically affect certain people that we probably need to flesh out. I don't disagree, but we're taking the same course as we did, as we planned to do with the previous report. There's no difference. So just that editorial change, and let's move on with it.
Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
I seem to be in a housekeeping mood too. Sarah, I'm just wondering if when this is made available to the public, or maybe some people looking at it this evening, but going forward to the public meeting, et cetera, is there any way that, I'm used to documentation where if you had a left side and a right side and you were eliminating something on your original order, you put a line through it, but you left it there so people could see what was. And then when you come to the right side of the page, you highlight in a different typeset like red, you highlight your additions so that when people look at it, it would be really clear to the public that this is eliminated and this is an add-on. Because it's just a clarity for the public, because they're not, they don't go out reading 37 pages of, municipal whatever. So I just think that if we want to be communicating and transparent, then we can say we've done all of this, and get a book and a Coca-Cola and sit down and start reading. And if you have problems, come to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson. I will echo Councilor McCullen. When it does come to home business and home industry, I think that despite the provincial guidelines, telling us that, really you're not supposed to have any employees. Wainfleet is a unique area. We're a large geographical place without a lot of industry and commercial space to begin with. So I do think as a long term, we should consider, certain options when it comes to, especially businesses that are already here, that have been here for a really long time. I don't want to take away from somebody's livelihood. So when it comes up at the public meeting, before anything gets finalized, let's really sit down and talk about that, because there are businesses out there, but I understand why we're going down that road, because you draw the line in the sand and some people, will abuse that line. So we'll just have to review that when it comes to the public meeting, all right? Anybody else have any other further comment? Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
So Sarah, just to clarify for me, this housekeeping will enter into the field of the official plan when we revisit that, correct?
Through Mr. Mayor to the councillor. So no, this will be separate. So the goal with this housekeeping amendment is to get the township under one bylaw and to address some of the challenges that we're having with the wording and provisions in the bylaw, as well as to address those minor variance common requests. And then the official plan process will be a separate process. We'll have a look at our official plan comprehensively, and then we may see either a new zoning bylaw or changes to this bylaw to put into effect what we decide with the new official plan. So this is only to conform with our current official plan, and the work that we need to do with the update that we have scheduled will be separate from this housekeeping amendment.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Any other further discussion? Okay, seeing none, then I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that is carried. Moving on to the Public Works staff reports. PWSR 007-2024, respecting the Ball Diamond washroom upgrade. Mr. Nan, could you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. As you're all aware, the township became the recipients of a very substantial grant for the Township of Wainfleet Community Complex renovation. To date, we have completed the sports field drainage and the walking trail, as well as the storm sewer outlets along the laneway. We've also completed the electrical lighting and pole replacements. They're up and running at the moment. There's just some remaining restoration that's required. This year's project was to include the upgrade of the Ball Diamond washroom area to make it so it's compliant and barrier-free complying with AODA, as well as make it barrier-free. Township staff prepared a tender, and the bids and results of the bids are included in the staff report, as well as the recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Nance. So I have a motion that PWSR 007-2024, respecting the award for the Ball Diamond washroom upgrade, be received, and that council direct the manager of operations to engage the services of Sirianni Construction Limited to complete the project for the Ball Diamond washroom upgrade. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor Gilmore, Councilor McCullen, any discussion? Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Richard, how much of the tender quote, what percentage of that is covered under grant?
Through your worship, to Councilor Anderson, I'll have to remember, but I believe it's 26. I can't remember what our percentage was. 26% is our portion of it.
So we're committed to 26% of this tender number.
That's correct.
And if I may continue, Mayor, are you comfortable with fiscal quoting from 2019 quotes? I mean, do you feel that this tender dollar catches up with inflation and what a dollar's worth today?
Through your worship, to Councilor Anderson, it is comparable when you figure in some of the increases that were in the industry. I mean, some of the increases went from 23 to all the way up to 44% over the course of through the COVID period. This grant was prepared in 2019 using pricing of 2019, so there is some substantial increases. So I think it is comparable to what we are seeing in the industry now. We did have a very large contingency in the grant application that was approved. We will be dipping into that contingency as we go along with the project. We still have a couple of additional things planned for next year as part of that grant application because it's a multi-year program. We will be reviewing what's left and the costing that's left in the grant application and what we can accomplish during that grant. And then that'll be coming back to council for approval on the next year's budget. And then we'll know exactly where we're at with the overall grant as well as our input and see what we're left with at the end of this year's project.
Go ahead, Councilor Anderson.
If I may continue through, Mayor. So help me understand this tender process. So the tender came in at X number of dollars. There is no leeway contingency for that bidder to add on to the costing, is there?
That's correct. Any change orders that are made in any contract once they're awarded have to be approved by township. Like if, the tender was written and included all the work that's slated to be done, all the fixtures that need to be replaced, including paint, all the way from paper towel holders, et cetera. Any change orders or changes to the scope, they have to get approved by the township before they get paid for any additions to the contract.
And through, Mayor, if I may continue, we've already exercised some work within that building already, the township.
Part of all the electrical that was done for the ball diamond lighting is also included at the end of that building. That's all been placed in. Most of it's actually on the exterior of the building because the building itself, compartment that the electrical was in, didn't meet the new codes. So a lot of it had to be weatherproof system that was put on the outside.
If I may continue through you, does this project have the scope that in the future, population grows, events get bigger, we hold more events? Will the project be aligned with expanding that building, like adding more facility to it or a workroom to it or et cetera, et cetera?
Basically, we're trying to renovate the existing footprint that we have without adding additional costing for an addition. We're limited to space in that area because we do have septic tanks that are existing and a very large pump chamber system that was put in because of the new septic bed. But there is some room for some expansion in that area.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Richard.
Councilor McClellan? You're good? Okay. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, we're going to move on to the review of correspondence, C 2024-067, respecting the increased funding to libraries and museums in Ontario. Councillor Anderson, you requested to pull this item of correspondence. Do you wish to make a motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make the motion that we receive and support the correspondence from Lincoln and that we send out corresponding letters to all MPs, et cetera. I believe that 25-year-old funding models are quite out of date. Populations have changed, and so I'm hoping the government can recognize that they need to step up and pick up a few more shekels for people. Thank you.
Okay, so can I get a seconder for Councillor Anderson's motion? Councillor McClellan, any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. All right. Okay, moving on to C 2024-091, respecting the permanent planting at the cenotaph. Councillor Van Fleet originally requested to pull this item of correspondence, but unfortunately, she was unable to be here this evening. So does another member of council wish to make a motion? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
I'd be pleased to bring the motion to support the request to do some planting and upgrading and beautification around the cenotaph. And just as a beginning gardener, I love the choices that their individuals put in. The cedars and the sedum and the forester grass, it by itself is not a big spreader, so it's not going to wander all over the cenotaph. So I believe that we should support this request from the Historical Society. Thank you.
All right, can I have a seconder? Councilor McCollum. Any discussion? Seeing none? Okay, I will call a question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. So moving on to C 2024-098, respecting the request for exemption to Section 7.1 of BLO 10-2018. Mr. Nan, you've pulled this item of correspondence. Can you please speak to this request?
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff were approached by the individual hoping to get an exemption from the bylaw, and I informed them that it's a council-approved bylaw and the request had to go to council. I am reluctant to look at any things as far as exemptions to bylaws, especially in this case, because the time of year is like right now the ground is saturated, it's not absorbing a lot more moisture, and potential road damage can still occur. But again, I leave it up to council's discretion because it was a bylaw approved by council. And we look for their input.
Any members of council wish to speak to this request? Councilor McCollum, go ahead.
You, Mr. Mayor, I have to agree with Mr. Nan. Soak and waterlogged subgrade is as bad as frost heaves, and heavy loads will just rut it. You want to see come down my end of town, all those township roads from one of our neighbors has tore them all up, and that was in the summer. It still happens, so I have to agree with Mr. Nan.
All right, so then any other comments? Oh, Councilor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I do tend to agree, although my trucking background sort of coming out a little bit, and he does have a point that in certain years there are times when the period of time that half load is on is certainly excessive. Now, how do you decide that? I'm not sure. I am assuming that this is a job-specific request. He's not asking for a blanket exemption. So, I agree with all the comments. I just wonder if at times we should possibly consider site-specific exemption on a certain road, subject to the evaluation of the Public Works Director, Manager. Sometimes things are hard to postpone and schedule and have to be done. And this would be an example of a year where it's not likely going to make any difference whether you're fully loaded or not fully loaded. Not every year is like this, obviously, but so I'm not going to propose that we make a change, other than just to make a comment that we may want to consider some site-specific requests from time to time. And I'm just curious, is this a site-specific request?
Through your worship to Councilor Gilmore, yes, this is a specific site that they're constructing on. And, again, I think we've had two delegations in the past that have requested the same thing. And I'm not opposed to site-specific, but again, it's a general bylaw set by council. Normally, it's the bylaw was created for frost and freeze-thaw cycles. This year was really an abnormal type of winter, let's put it that way. We've had multiple times where, between rain events and freezing events and thawing events and more rain events, it's just been up and down like crazy. and we haven't had, I mean, we did have some dry weather, and it worked out in our favor for some things. We did manage to get some roads. We actually started doing some preparation work. But again, it's based on the moisture content, and right now, everything's just saturated, and it's not, it's not getting rid of it. At any point, when we get these requests that come to council can look at them site-specific at that point, at any time, yes.
But I'll just continue. You're not recommending that in this particular case?
Through your worship, at this point, like even some of the maintenance we've been starting, we're noticing that the ground is really saturated. And I'm just worried that it's just going to tear it right up, and we'll be in a situation where we'll be rebuilding it. And not to say that it still may not happen, because, the moisture's still there. It still may happen even with half loads. It's based on the volume of traffic as well as the weight of the traffic. So it still may happen, but we're just trying to minimize it the best we can.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just wonder if, maybe sometime down the road, we should consider giving the Public Works Manager the discretion to make a site-specific, rather than have to come and change bylaws and all this stuff. Is that, is something that you can look at? Because this probably won't be the only time that this happens. It's probably not, we're probably not able to do it now. It's too short. But I just like to make it flexible for businesses in certain years to continue on. I'm not an engineer, but I know that lots of years having to wait till April 30 or May, whenever, is far too long. It's unnecessary.
If I may, Your Worship, I'm attending the conference in, I guess, about a month from now. One of the sessions we'll be meeting with is with the ministry, because they're actually looking at that exact thing province-wide, because it's a general time frame that they have for certain zones, and they've been asked as well to see if they can be shrunk and what criteria can be used. So that's one of the discussions we'll be having at the conference, and see if they come up with any recommendations from an engineering standpoint, and then we can always revisit and come back to council.
Councilor McCollum, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I actually think we do have a methodology to make this work, but I doubt there's a contractor in the country that'll take it. We have a road use agreement. If you want to go down the road and you want to sign it and you'll take responsibility for it, have at it. But if the road blows up, you pay. And I don't think anybody wants to touch that, right? Especially at this time of year. You don't want to risk that kind of money, right? So, and I mean, you're going to a conference and they're talking about properly built roads the MTO and the towns have. I don't think we have too many properly built roads in a lot of these side roads and back roads in Wainfleet. I went by one and you were pulling up topsoil and stumps that were buried in there on Wilford Road the last time you were doing that. And so, like, that's the problem we have is, right? But I mean, there is a road use agreement. If Richard wants to talk to him and you want to take the risk, if you believe you're right, have at it. But if you're wrong, it might cost you $100,000, right? So.
Okay. If there's no further comments, I'll just make a motion to receive this as information right now. Can I get a seconder? Councilor McCullen, any other further discussion? Go ahead, Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but just from my sense of business, I think if you're in the business of hauling or large equipment, and we're lucky enough to have the expertise of two councilors, I think if you bid a job and you know you're doing something in a half-load season, then you bill it up on your client bill. So that's their business. Or if you want to wait until you get to full load, then you can do the job. Like, I think we're getting into something here that has to do with a business model. I realize that you like to get jobs done, but I just think that this is touching on two talking points, and I go with John. If you want to do a roads agreement, knock yourself out.
Okay, there being no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. We're going to move into bylaws. I have a motion that bylaw number 010-2024, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Property Standards Committee and Appeals Committee, be read and passed this 19th day of March 2024. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan, Councilor Gilmore, any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Okay, seeing none. And so then I now have a motion that council now move into closed session to discuss item under section 239-2D of the Municipal Act 2001, labor relations or employee negotiations. One item, matter pertaining to employee negotiations. Second item under section 239-2K of the Municipal Act 2001, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. One item, a negotiation matter. Third item, under section 239-2K of the Municipal Act 2001, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. One item, an HR update. And then fourth item, minutes of the closed meetings of council held February 20th, 2024. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan, Councilor Gilmore, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. So we'll now move into closed session.